Hello world, let's play a game. Which side are you on? Rules are simple. I will go through the facts that are now published, well documented, out there for the whole world to see, hear, and research. Images, videos, books, articles, real testimonies. And at the end, you get to select your side. I know a majority of you will be able to select a side simply by seeing these flags alone. But just so it is documented visually, I'd like for us to do this together. A visual video archive to show you what you stand for. So let's begin. Which side is committing every side you can think of? Genocide, feticide, infanticide, ecocide, herbicide, scholasticide, and more. Which side is enacting not just a genocide, but a Holocaust as determined by genocide and Holocaust experts, whom also happen to be Jewish? Which side is killing humans at every stage of life, from embryos to the elderly, killing children in world record numbers through bombing and executions via sniper fire, while simultaneously starving and freezing the children to death through purposeful blockade of aid?
Which side has caused the largest population of child amputees and one of the largest populations of orphans on planet Earth?
Which side uses internationally banned white phosphorus and uses the other side as a testing ground for new weaponry? Which side is known to have a nuclear arsenal that they refuse to let the world investigate and negotiate? Which side is currently holding over 10,000 hostages, including hundreds of children? Which side kidnaps children and holds them hostage under the guise of arresting them for throwing rocks? Which side is the only country on earth that arrests children and systematically prosecutes children in military courts, where between 500 and 700 Palestinian children are detained and prosecuted annually, many of which are held under administrative detention orders without a charge or trial, which is a violation of international law? Which side is known to be a haven of pedophiles, rapists, and sex traffickers, as reported by their very own news media? Which side is known to have global child trafficking rings? Which side was Jeffrey Epstein on? Which side blackmails the US government into submission? Which side has raped hostages on camera with physical evidence of it, while claiming the other side are the rapists, while having no evidence of that? Which side has beheaded, dismembered, and disemboweled children daily with physical evidence of it, while claiming the other side beheads babies with zero evidence that the international news community has continuously debunked? Which side is internationally documented as the most egregious land thieves, enacting an ethnic cleansing campaign since its arrival and inception and until this very day? Which side is about to occupy a piece of land it has said it was never going to occupy, knowing full well that they were lying? Which side purposely kills their own, including their own prisoners of war? Which side silences their own news media and people for speaking out against them? Which side doesn't allow outside news media networks to enter to see for themselves? Which side specifically targets and kills journalists to prevent them from showing the truth? Which side kills doctors, nurses, patients, even while they're in a hospital? Which side kidnaps healthcare professionals for months to hold them hostage without due process, while also killing them through rape and torture? Which side executes medics on camera and then lies all about it? Which side bombs hospitals, schools, mosques, and churches regularly? Which side spits on and attacks Christians walking in Jerusalem? Which side has done more to harm the United States than any other country on earth, whether it be fiscally through the billions and billions the US directly pours into them, or into the wars they pull the US into, when each dollar could have gone to healthcare, education, and the struggling families across the United States? Which side attacked the USS Liberty on international waters in 1967 via aircraft from their Air Force and motor torpedo boats from their Navy, killing 34 American crewmen and wounding 174? Which side has direct ties to practically every single war the US has been in, as well as practically every controversial event the US has gone through in our modern era? Which side has been caught in multiple espionage activities in the United States, particularly focusing on military and dual-use technologies, as well as efforts to gather information about US policy on the Middle East, to the point where there is evidence of their placement of spying devices within or near the White House, where just a few days ago, even Trump staffer Mike Waltz was hacked by a company from this side using a fake signal app planted on his phone. Which side has created technologies like the AI face recognition technologies that are currently being used to identify you and invade all your privacy in order to not just continue to shut down your free speech, but to get you arrested and deported even as a US citizen? Which side is getting students speaking against injustice, mass incarcerated under false accusations that they themselves are guilty of? Which side has direct ties to police brutality all over the world? And by direct ties, I mean they are the ones training our police. Which side says they're constantly at war and defending themselves, while they continue to have music festivals and mass outings at the beach? Which side is losing more from their side by the minute, as they have emerged out of their brainwashed bubble of hate and racism, walking through a one-sided door, no way back? Which side now has international authors, scholars, Holocaust survivors, family members of Holocaust survivors, and former Zionists that are now adamantly and unabashedly fighting the other side with everything they have? Which side has a group of ex-soldiers literally breaking their silence on the atrocities they have either committed or seen committed while they were serving, and are now fighting against their previous side to destroy them with the truth? Which side is backed by practically every single humanitarian organization on the planet, each of which are calling this a genocide, a mass man-made famine, a cemetery for children? Which side is represented by a walking herpy and overperformative cringy liars that think they have influence? Which side pays for their influence, paying for college students to attend their rallies, paying for celebrities to visit their fabricated way of life, investing in social media bots, investing in political puppets, investing in desperate propaganda attempts that only destroy themselves from within, whether it be cartoons because they lack physical evidence, or propaganda documentaries I like to call propumentaries, showcasing staged lies and Z-list celebrities?
Which side is backed by a capitalist elitist oligarchy that is actively trying to kill free speech, and some of which do this?
Which side claims to be indigenous to the land and then burns and destroys the indigenous agriculture and historical sites of the land, while planting new non-indigenous vegetation that is catching fire and setting the land they stole ablaze? Which side claims to be indigenous to the Middle East but is allergic to olive tree pollen? Which side claims to be indigenous to the Middle East and has one of the highest rates of skin cancer in the world? Which side claims to be Semitic when DNA tests have verified they are not? Which side has no cultural identity and is actively culturally appropriating not just the Middle East food, music, fashion, language, and culture, but the rest of the world? Which side calls other humans animals? Which side is well known to abuse, torture, and kill animals? Which side is well known to be attacked by animals? Which side is now classified as an apartheid state by international law? Which side is being prosecuted by the two highest courts on the planet? Which side has international arrest warrants out for their leaders, whom are active war criminals? Which side continuously claims to be the most moral, while video and photo evidence shows the opposite, daily, as they steal and wear the underwear of women they've killed or displaced, while also defiling children's toys and beds, and mocking dead children in schools turned to rubble? Endless videos of immorality that represents their society as a whole. Which side mocks dead children and their grieving parents regularly on social media? Which side calls for the genocide and ethnic cleansing of a people, live on TV and podcasts, whether it be their politicians, their celebrities, their general public, or even the news anchors and hosts on their very own platforms? Which side doxes you for speaking the truth, hurling a term that they not only lost the right to use, but never had the right to use to begin with? Which side has collaborated with the Nazis, leading to the mass murder of their fellow Jews? Which side is currently doxing Jews and putting them on lists? Which side is attacking Jewish citizens around the globe, including rabbis? Which side has the most resilient people on the planet, walking hand in hand with true Jews and people of all walks of life all over the globe, fighting for their side and all oppressed people to be free? Which side has a resistance that is legal by international law and the UN Charter, as it is the side that is under a brutal occupation within an apartheid system that is holding their entire people hostage within concentration camps and systemic policies of racism, hate, segregation, land theft, and self-justified rape, murder, and ethnic cleansing of their entire people? Which side can do whatever the fuck they want by any means necessary if they want to regain their freedom, independence, and basic human rights, as stated by international law? There you have it. Now it's time to pick a side. And if you're still in the middle at this point, you might as well move yourself to this side, because you'll eventually burn in hell with them. Game over. Good night.